Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. Um, I wanted to make a video on a Quranic verse that I came across recently, and I was really struck by how important this verse was, and today I wanted to just take a little bit of time to make this video. I hope, inshallah, that you will stick around and, inshallah, enjoy the video. And without further ado, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. When I was reading through the Quran recently, I came across the verse that basically says, "None shall attain to piety until ye give of that which ye love." And I was very struck by the sheer force of this verse. And so I hope today, inshallah, I could just share with you some thoughts, particularly, what exactly is piety and what does it mean to be pious, and ultimately explain what is the ultimate form of piety in Islam. As far as the word piety is concerned, Islam says that this word is really it encompasses, or it includes, a lot of things. So, for instance, piety could mean kindness, loyalty, sincerity, obedience, right? It can also include the belief in Allah, resurrection, His prophets, helping the less fortunate, fasting and prayer, keeping one's promises, or even simply being steadfast, okay, or firm in in the face of life's problems and challenges. Okay, so all these things could be included in the term what it means to be pious. Okay, so in chapter 2, verse 177, the Quran really sums this up. Okay, it says that it is not piety that ye turn your faces towards east or west. Rather, pious is he who believe in Allah and the last day, the angels, the book, the messengers, to spend out of your wealth, so zakat, despite loving it, or as the study Quran explains, that even this sentence could also mean because of your love for Him. So you would spend out of your wealth because of your love for Allah. Right? So it's an important point to just to mention. The verse also continues, for you can spend also for your kin, your orphans, for the needy, for the wayfarer, for those who ask, and for the ransom of slaves, to be steadfast in prayer, to practice regular charity, to fulfill the contracts which ye have made, and to be firm and patient in pain or suffering and adversity, and throughout all periods of panic. Such are the people of truth, the God-fearing. So this is really what piety encompasses. Okay. Now, the rationale for spending the wealth or charity is actually out of our love for Allah. Okay, so this is an important aspect of the verse that we really need to take note of. one of the primary meanings of zakat, because the verse also mentions zakat, interestingly, means to thrive or to grow. Okay, so although zakat is a form of charity, it's a very specific form of charity, and Islam has these specific kinds of charity. So, for instance, zakat, khums, zakat al-fitra, right? So these are all types of specific charities, and the verse does mention not only the zakat, which is a very specific charity, but also it mentions sadaqah, which is a more general form of charity. It's not obligatory, it's voluntary, and you can do that anytime. Of course, Muslims really are aware of this. They pay the khums, they pay the zakat, and of course they do, inshallah, regular charity. With respect to the zakat, though, the zakat is, and as well as the khums, especially more so, the zakat is seen as an increaser of one's wealth. So the more that one gives of the zakat, it is known to be a source of not just purification, but also to increase Allah's blessings through through the charity of the zakat. But zakat, as much as it has this meaning of the increase of one's wealth through spending, which is kind of like, and I sort of Westerners probably wouldn't understand this concept of the more you give, that the more you would receive. And that is a promise from Allah that the more you give of your wealth, Allah will reimburse you, and it would in fact even increase your wealth, right? This is where the zakat, this idea of increase comes from, okay? So the zakat also has another meaning, which also means to purify. So as much as the zakat is able to increase one's wealth, even though one gives of one's wealth, it also has the ability to purify as well. So for instance, there are a lot of verses in the Quran that may seem to be talking about zakat, but in fact is really an exhortation, right, to self-purification, and not necessarily limited to spending or even increase, as is typically understood when we talk about zakat. So there is that element to the notion of zakat as well. However, zakat charity in general has the principle behind charity, all forms of charity, whether that is zakat, or whether that is khums, or whether that's just sadaqah, which is just voluntary charity. The main principle behind them is that we do them in order that it may purify us and also purify our wealth as well, okay? And this is a means or a ritual by which we use to purify the self. When we talk about charity, charity has both an outward and an inward aspect, okay? Inward or outward aspect in Islam. Now, the outward aspect looks at the etiquette by which one performs charity, okay? And that etiquette is one of selflessness and doing charity solely for the purpose of out of our love for Allah, okay? Out of our love for Allah. And there is a story, just to show you an example of what I mean when I say outward charity and how it is performed, and the etiquette by which it is performed, being that it is selfless and it is strictly for the sake of Allah. There is a hadith that talks about a companion by the name of Abu Talha, companion of the Prophet, and he was an older man, and he was a man of wealth, and he owned a garden that was actually not far from the Prophet's mosque or home at the time. And the Prophet used to love to come to this garden because it was a very beautiful garden, and he would come and he would sit and he would drink from the fountain, etc., etc. And they say that there was a particular verse in the Quran that was revealed about charity. And of course, the verse talked about giving of that which we love, okay? Giving from the things that we loved. And the hadith says that once Abu Talha heard this verse recited, he immediately thought about what was the most important thing that he loved the most out of the things that he had, and of course the garden was definitely one of them. And what he did was he decided as a result that he loved and this garden so much that he wanted to give it away. And he came to the Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him and his family, and he gave it to the Prophet. And the Prophet was very gracious. He thanked him for the generosity, but then of course gave it back to him and said, I'm not really in need of it. So he gave it back to him and told him it might be best to give it to a family member. And he did that. The point, the thing that's important to underscore about the Quranic verse that he heard was the Quranic verse talked about giving in charity of that which we love. Okay, and for him, Abu Talha, the garden was the thing that he had cherished the most, and so he gave it. So that's one aspect of the etiquette of charity within Islam, and of course many Muslims know this, that when it comes to charity, we give of that which we love. This is the most important thing. And if you don't know this, certainly this is the etiquette among it's one of the primary motives of charity, is that we give of that which we love. And of course, what is the thing that we love the most? I wouldn't say the most, but certainly it's really up there. It's certainly money, right? We love money. I mean, there are other things that we love as well. People love power, people love wealth, people love a lot of other things, but certainly money is definitely up there, right? So, of course, in this case, in the case of Abu Talha, it was his garden. So one of the etiquette, or one of the attitudes towards giving in Islam, is that we give of that which we love. Okay, we give of that which we love. And this is definitely demonstrated in the hadith. Now, another etiquette in terms of the outward aspect of charity within Islam is the etiquette of doing charity without expecting anything in return. Anything. Okay? And in chapter 76, verse 8 to verse 9, this is brought to bear. And there's a verse that says that it says to Muslims that we should say to the people who thank us when we give in charity, we should tell them, we feed you only for the face of Allah alone. Desire from you no recompense or thanks. So Another etiquette is when we give, that even when we give of that which we love, that we don't expect anything in return, not even so much as a thank you. Now, I want to share with you a story that actually I came across recently. Just happens, situation that just happened to me. Well, not happened to me, but I read recently on Facebook. Recently, I was scrolling through Facebook and I noticed a story where someone had written in one of the neighborhood groups within our neighborhood. And apparently, one of the recent ice storm snowfalls that happened, it was a lot of snow, and apparently one of the persons got their cars covered with a lot of snow, and they were trying to, I guess, dig their way out, but it was just too much, and they went back and gave up, whatever. And then at some point they came back out, maybe a day or so later, and found out that somebody had came by and cleaned the snow off their car and shoveled the snow away from their car, and so they're able to now come out and use their car. And what's interesting about the person's reaction who got the who did the charity, or did this wonderful deed, was that they left a note on the car when they were finished cleaning the car. They left a note, and so the person found the note, and then they wrote into the Facebook neighborhood group, trying to find out who this person was, and just wanted to express their gratitude and thank them, and also give them something in return for this kind act of theirs. They presented the note in the Facebook group, and the note said, "Pay forward," and it really I mean, I think that it really struck me that that something as small as saying "paid forward" carries within it an expectation that, when we think about charity within Islam, is completely wiped away. And of course, I mean, not to downplay the kind act of the person who did clean the car and left the note, but there was somehow something in them that felt that they needed to communicate to the person who owned the car that they should now also do the same for someone else. And I mean, there's nothing, I can't say it was a bad thing to do, but I felt that certainly from an Islamic point of view, there is still a little bit of expectation from the person who who left the note. And in Islam, this idea of expecting anything in return, even for a person to pay forward, it just is not part of the Islamic etiquette when it comes to charity. And so this is one of the areas in which Islam is so uniquely different when it comes to charity. And this is another example too. We see today a lot of organizations, especially charitable organizations, or who will, when you donate to them, they offer you a receipt, right? They offer you a receipt to reclaim what you have, to reclaim some kind of tax incentive on your donation, which I think is a little bit counterproductive to the very act of charity, which is you're given without wanting or expecting anything in return. And I just think that this idea, and a lot of Muslims partake in this. They see nothing wrong with this. And for me personally, I would say that if you are of those types of people who are partaking in that type of practice, you might want to reconsider that, because your charity should be free of any expectations in return, whether it be a return later on the year, or whether it be a thank you from someone who is receiving your charity. No expectation. This is what Islam teaches us, because our reward is with Allah, and Allah is the best of those to reward us. So that's one of the etiquette of charity. Okay. There is another hadith from Imam Hussein al-Islam that demonstrates the one of the teachings behind charity. And one day someone came to him and saw him giving sugar as charity, and they said, "Oh, Imam, did you give sugar as charity?" As if to say, "Imam, is that? I mean, you're giving sugar of all things. I mean, it's such a simple, it's not a very luxurious item, right? It's nothing, very simple, right?" And the Imam said to him, he said, "Yes, there isn't anything more beloved to me than sugar. So I love to give for charity what is most beloved to me." Okay. Once again, Imam is showing us that the item of charity, or the object of charity, is not what is really important here. What's important is our attachment to the thing that we're giving charity to, right? Now, some people have varying degrees of attachment to certain things. Some people, love money more than others. Some people find, have more attachment to actual physical things like furniture or jewelry or whatever it may be, right? So it doesn't matter what it is. What really matters is the Quran encourages us to give of that which we love the most. Okay. And so the Imam was showing us that, for him, he really loves sugar. So that's something he gives for charity. And he does that because of trying to break his attachment to it, right? Trying to break away from the detrimental impact of being too attached to that which we love. Okay. Because once again, chapter 3, verse 92 talks about this, right? None shall attain to piety until you give of that which you love. Okay? So it's really important that those things that we see ourselves strongly in attachment to, those are the things that produce the best charity in Allah's eyes, because those are the things that we have a harder time letting go. And more importantly, God says that if you really want to be pious, if you really want to be close to God, if you really want to embrace the overall teachings of goodness in this religion, pay attention to those things that you love, and be ready to give up those things. So, just to share with you another story about charity. One day, the Messenger of Allah, with some of his companions, they went to see Imam Ali. He went to his house, and al-Islam. And when they got there, they noticed that Imam Hussein was sick. They hadn't been feeling well. And the Messenger of Allah said to Imam Ali, he says, you should make a vow to Allah that, if Allah heals them, that you would do something. And so as usual, Imam Ali is is always ready to take, the advice of the Messenger of Allah without hesitation. And sure enough, they say that Imam Hussein and Imam Hassan became well shortly after that, after he did make the vow. And what he vowed was, he vowed that if they did actually become well, that he would fast for 3 days. And in fact, him, Lady Fatima al-Islam, and even their servant, her name was Fida. So she was the maid of the house, and she also decided to fast, along with the children as well. So so they fasted, and on the first night of breaking the fast, it so happened that they didn't have very much. In fact, they actually borrowed some flour from the neighbor, it said, and to make bread and whatnot, and they made just enough for the 5 of them. And on the night of breaking the fast, as they were preparing to break the fast, they heard a knock at the door. They opened up, and they saw that they saw there was a beggar at the door, and he said, "Peace be upon you, O Ahlul Bayt. I am one of the poorest of Muslims. Can you please feed me, and may Allah feed you of the food of paradise?" And of course, the hadith said that they gave what they had to the beggar. Turns out that they didn't have anything to break their fast with other than just water that night. The next day, they started again their fast, and sure enough, when they were about to break their fast again with the preparation of bread that they made, it is said that once again, someone came to the door, and it turned out to be an orphan. And of course, he explained his situation, and they also fed him and gave him their food. And again, they went to bed, breaking their fast with just water. And this went on onto the third night, when once again they went to break their fast. A prisoner of war came and explained his situation and begged them for food, and they gave what they had and went again to bed, just with water. The next day, Imam Ali took his 2 children to see the Messenger of Allah. Now, the hadith says that when they got there, the Messenger of Allah noticed that that they were trembling, and they looked a little bit pale. Of course, they were trembling from 3 days of hunger, right? So the Messenger of Allah became a little bit worried. So he got up, and he went back to the house. He took them back to Imam Ali's house to see his daughter. And they say that when he got into the house, he noticed that Fatima al-Islam was on the prayer mat, and she looked also a little bit very weak, and she was trembling, and just the way she looked, you can tell that it was very serious. And it turned out that in that same moment, Gabriel al-Islam appeared and congratulated the Messenger of Allah. And he said, "O Messenger of Allah, Allah congratulates you for the sacrifice of your household." And then he recited the verse, this verse from the Quran, and it comes from chapter 76, verse 8 to 9, and it says, in reference to them, the Ahlul Bayt, it said, "And they feed for the love of Allah the indigent, the orphaned, and the captive. We feed you only for the face of Allah alone, desire from you no recompense or thanks." And the messenger was really happy about this, and he congratulated the household of Imam Ali al-Islam. He congratulated him, told them what had happened. And and this became a well-known verse within both as in reference to them, both within the Sunni tradition as well as Hadith tradition, as well as the Shia Hadith tradition. So this is a well-known verse. And so once again, the Quran is teaching us that that the things we hold dear, we need to learn to sacrifice these things, and that they are for our benefit when we sacrifice these things. And of course, we do it and only do it for the sake of Allah, without any expectations. Right? I wanted though to I want to leave it there for now. I'll come back to this verse in the following video. Inshallah, you stick around and join me there, and we'll continue. Assalamu alaikum.